shows the growth of the game. It shows that people are very excited about the game and want to watch, and that's really good. And hopefully we'll keep growing, and it goes with ups and downs, but this is really good, and we need to see all these good things and keep working hard to make everything get everything in a better place.
And just on a negative, we have seen some criticism recently about some of the pitches that players have been on. I'm thinking specifically of the Real Madrid game recently. How concerned are you about seeing your players on those kind of pitches?
Yeah, of course, that was really disappointing. The weather was horrible there, and you had hoped that they would play in Bernabeu. I don't know how you pronounce that, or how you say it in English, but then I think he could have prevented. I think it would have been a little bit hard anyway because of the weather circumstances there. But you want better pitches. There have been some moments now that the pitches were actually really poor, a little bit dangerous too, and that's what we said with ups and downs. We need to keep working on these things and get players on pitches that are really good, that they can show their performances at the highest level, but also that takes away risks of injuries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Hi, Serena. Nice to see you. We often talk about kind of the balance between the short-term aim of the next game in the Nations League, and then the slightly longer-term look at the Euros preparation as well. Where do you feel we sit in that balance going into this camp with the second last one before the tournament?
Yeah. Well, of course, the Nations League want to do really well in the Nations League because that gives us a better position for the qualifying for the World Cup. But at the same time, it is preparation for the Euros. So we want to see players. And we want to take the opportunity to see these players in our environment, in training sessions, but also in the games, of course. And the closer you get to the tournaments, the more decisions or more decisive decisions you will have to take for the tournament. That's too early now, but of course, again, this next camp will give us a lot of information about where players stand. I know we also have some injuries, and hopefully, the players who are injured can come back in a pretty good period of time that we can see them where they're at.
Yeah, you mentioned the injuries. Do you have any kind of update on where we're at with Alex or Georgia or Lauren?
Well, I can't be very specific on all these injuries. There's a list of it. They have been out for a while, and it will take some more time. I can't give you any time schedule on that. I think that's something also for the club. I can tell you my hopes that they are back in a good shape and ready to play, of course, in the short term and get ready for, of course, it starts with performances and being fit, but for Euros.
And can I also ask you about the World Sevens football tournament that was announced last week? Obviously, it's launching in May. How would you feel about potentially some of your players playing in an extra seven-a-side tournament 6 weeks before the Euros?
Yeah, it's. I've read it too, of course. I think in the longer term, like you see, they're planning a bit. I don't see how you can get that fit in the schedule. If you look at the short term before these Euros now, for some players, I think they would play, and there's collaboration with clubs. We have very good contact with clubs, and they would get some, I would say, meaningful minutes to get prepared for the Euros and do what's right to get at the best possible shape for the Euros. Then in this short term, for some it would not be too bad. But in longer term, I don't see how we can fit that in the schedule, in the calendar.
Players have quite understandably in the past talked about fears about being overloaded, about playing too much football. Do you think the addition of this new tournament would at all undermine those concerns?
Well, like we're talking about the longer term on this tournament, the shorter term, if you see now the calendar for this summer, there is a gap, and there's a gap of no football, and where players can have a little bit of rest, but at the same time, players need to keep going because you want to be at your best at the Euros, and there's a window where we play Portugal and Spain in May, June, and there's a gap of, well, say about, there's a gap of no competitive games for about a month. And of course I'm a bit a bit worried about that, because players who are coming back from injuries, they want to keep going, get in a rhythm. So that's a challenge in the calendar, which I hope will be solved in the future.
And just finally on that topic, have you received any assurances that if any of your players were to be involved in that seven-a-side tournament, that they wouldn't be kind of overworked, essentially?
No, I haven't get any assurances. What we have done club visits, we have had conversations with clubs, and what we all want in collaborations, that the players who are selected for the squad come in really fresh and fit and ready to go. And that's the aim. It's all about performances at the Euros, and that's what we're talking about. And we have a very good relationship with all the clubs we've spoken to. And
also, there's been some reports in the past weeks as well about maybe a bit of an impasse between players and the FA over bonuses related to the Euros. Just what's your read on that situation and those negotiations?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised about the article. I think that the FA and the players are in conversation about that, and for my opinion, what I've heard from it, I'm not involved in these conversations, we're going into the right direction, and I hope we'll keep going and we get to an agreement very quickly, because that brings calmness before the tournament.
Yeah, there was obviously a comparable situation maybe before the World Cup. Is there any frustration that there's conversations about this topic again?
I wouldn't compare the two, because it is a little bit different, because the UEFA is involved, the FIFPro has been involved in these things. So I think, and I hope, that we get to an agreement pretty soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kip. Go to Emma.
Hi, Serena.
Hi.
I just want to ask about Jess Naz, because obviously she's not been included in this squad. Is that purely based on selection, or is there any injury concerns there?
No, there's no injury concerns. That's based on selection.
Yeah, was that just because of the high competition for the other players in that position?
Yeah, there is high competition going on, and I think Jess has been struggling a little bit with her form, and hopefully she gets that back. But of course, she's close to selection.
And other young players that have been called up, obviously Maisie Simon's getting her first call up. What have you seen in her that's really impressed you?
Yeah, so of course in midfield, what you have seen, we have some injuries in midfield. We've been following Maisie, of course, played at Brighton, but also played good games for the under-23s. So this gives an opportunity for her to show in our environment what she's about, and to see where she is related to the other midfielders we have in our squad. I'm really looking forward to that, to see where she's at.
And Kiara Keating as well, coming back into the squad. It's probably been a difficult, few seasons for her. It's been quite up and down.
Yeah.
What sort of message did you give to her when you told her that she was coming back into the fold, and you wanted to see her again?
Yeah, she's a very talented goalkeeper, and that's what we could we have seen that again this weekend. So we want her in our environment. We're getting closer to the Euros. So looking at this camp now, but also having a look at the Euros, we bring in 4 goalkeepers. While in the tournament you can only bring 3, and we just want to have them 4 goalkeepers in our squads and have them in our environment next week.
She was obviously involved in the Manchester City game against Chelsea. The 2 teams playing each other 4 times. I mean, it's unreal, really. But have you enjoyed watching that kind of battle? To
be honest, yes. For the neutral one, it's exciting. It's of course a little bit strange situation that you play each other 4 times. But I think we've seen so many aspects of the game from both teams that so far I've really enjoyed it, watching it.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Emma. David?
Hi, Serena.
Hi.
How much confidence did the squad take from the win over Spain, and can they carry that all the way forward to the summer?
Yeah, I think a lot of confidence. I think we showed ourselves that we are still a top team. We had a bit, of course, disappointment against Portugal. Well, I did think tactically Portugal did a couple of things really well. We had to adapt to that. So that was a different game. In between these games, we had some team meetings and conversation, and you could see a shift, and you could feel on the pitch and see on the pitch. We really fought for this win, and we knew ahead of it that it was a very competitive game, of course, because Spain is the world champion. So that brings confidence to the team. Showed ourselves with, of course, some changes in the team because what we say, we have a New England, different players in different stages of their career. So that brings us confidence. Looking forward to Belgium now. We've played Belgium, of course, in the Nations League before. They'll give us different challenges again, where we have to adapt to again, and that's absolutely what we want to show next week. It's going to be two tough games, but I'm really looking forward to meet up with the team again and see how we can continue what we were doing last camp.
Yeah, obviously Belgium reached the Euros, lost their last 2 games, but they have scored plenty of goals in recent games. So what are you expecting? What challenges will they face?
Yeah, I think they're very tough, very compact, tough team. Can play some physical, and they have a lot of, in the counter-attack, they're really, really dangerous. So they can harm many teams in that aspect. So yeah, and they have a low block where and it's really tight. So we have to be really patient next week in our game and be very tight on the ball and take out counter-attacks.
You're playing them twice in 5 days, which doesn't always happen. Do you enjoy that, the prospect to face them twice?
We've done that the last time we were with them in the group, and we had that with France, of course, too. It doesn't really matter if I enjoy it or not. This is the reality. This is what we have to approach, and we want to show up in our best possible shape and play our best games 2 times in a row, on Friday and on Tuesday.
And you talked about the goalkeepers. There's real competition in all areas of the pitch. Is it performances in these games coming up, or is it league games you're looking at when you're making big decisions for the final?
Sorry, you have to repeat that question.
Sorry, so you have competition.
I understand you're talking about the 2 goalkeepers.
Yeah, so you have goalkeepers, obviously strong goalkeepers. You have to make a choice there and in other areas. But is it the games coming up now, or league matches overall for when you make your choices for the finals?
Yeah, it's a very, very hard decision to make because as now we have four very good goalkeepers in the squad. You're talking about Hannah and Mary, who are really competing for the number 1 position. They're both world class. They both bring a little bit different things, but that makes it really hard. We haven't decided if we make the decision now. We first have conversations with them, then we move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any final questions? Yep.
Just one for me, Serena. We've got England's very long injury list at the moment. So how is the younger players currently stepping up in the squad? How is that going to impact going into the Euros?
I don't know yet because let's see. Of course, many young players have come in, working really hard, are excited, and I think the whole team also tries to support them. That's back and forth, by the way. And they're all. At the end, it's all about being the best in that position and have a big contribution to the team performances. And I hope that I have many hard decisions to make when we make the squad announcement after next, not this camp, but before the Euros. And then we know who are available and in performance-wise in a good position.
Great. Cool. We'll end it there. Thanks so much. Okay. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
programme. Given the announcement to abolish NHS England, will the Secretary of State reassure my constituents that there will be continued support for hospital trusts, like Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust, with unacceptable waiting times and a clear pathway to improvements for patients who deserve better?
So, State.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, is the short answer to that question. Removing the duplication, the waste and efficiency that comes with having effectively 2 head offices for the NHS will lead to better, more effective and streamlined decision making, but that won't in any way detract from the support that the Honourable Member describes. In fact, we should see more support and crucially more investment going to the front line as a result of the savings, the efficiencies and the improvements we're making.
Sir Hall.
Number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you. This government recognises the vital role that community pharmacies play as an integral part of our health system and local community. We're working with Community Pharmacy England on the pharmacy contract, which will start to stabilise the sector and make it fit for the future, and we will be announcing the outcome very shortly. On hub and spoke dispensing, we intend to lay draft secondary legislation in the coming weeks to come into force later this year.
Sir Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Community pharmacy funding is at a critical juncture, with many pharmacies in my constituency facing financial challenges. With community pharmacy running costs increasing and uncertainty around the date of the upcoming settlement, they are concerned that there may be disruption to their businesses. What steps is the department taking to ensure that input from community pharmacies is considered and prior to any further legislative or regulatory changes relating to the hub and spoke model?
Minister.
I thank her for that question. She's absolutely right that we inherited a community pharmacy system that had been neglected for far too long, such that over the last 2 years, on average, 6 pharmacies have been closing every week. On the hub and spoke model, a wide range of community pharmacies and representative organisations fed into the public consultation on hub and spoke reform, and I'm pleased to confirm that their responses were overwhelmingly positive in support of Model 1 of hub and spoke, which is the model that we'll be going with.
Rishi Sunak.
Mr. Speaker, I recently visited Well Pharmacy in Northallerton, which, like so many others, plays an important role in providing community health services. Now, one valued service is the provision of free blood pressure checks to those over the age of 40. So can I ask the Minister join with me in urging anyone with health worries or indeed a family history of high blood pressure to take up advantage of this fantastic free pharmacy-led preventative community health service?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for that question, and he's absolutely right that a big part of the government's shift from hospital to community is the pivotal role that community pharmacies will play in that process. We're committed to the pharmacy first model of enabling community pharmacies to do more clinical work, such as the type that he's just described, and we absolutely see that as being at the heart of our 10-year plan.
Dr. Luke Evans. Minister.
Now that he's abolishing NHS England, will he listen to the calls from the National Pharmacies Association and the Independent Pharmacies Association and publish the independent report commissioned by NHS England on pharmacies' finances immediately?
I thank the Shadow Minister for that question. We will be publishing the economic analysis imminently. He mentioned the National Pharmacy Association. That gives me the opportunity to say that I think the collective action that the NPA is taking is premature, unnecessary and detrimental to community pharmacy patients, and I would urge the NPA to reconsider its position and wait for the outcome of our negotiations coming very, very shortly with the CPE, and we'll be announcing that very soon.
Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They've been waiting for months to get the answer on this, and they are indeed advising all of their 6,000 pharmacy members to reduce services and hours for the first time in 104 years. That's never happened under a Labour government, nor the Lib Dems or a Conservative government. It's this government. And the chair of the National Pharmacies Association said the sense of anger among pharmacy owners has been intensified exponentially by the budget, citing unfunded NICs and national living wage increases. So he acknowledges there's potential action. What contingency plans has he taken as the Minister and Department to make sure we keep patients safe if pharmacies close their doors in industrial action next week?
Well, on the point about the NPA, I mean, it's taken us a while to clean up the utter mess that we inherited in community pharmacy. That involved agreeing financial envelopes, getting into negotiations with the CPE. Those negotiations have been very constructive, and I am delighted to confirm again that we will be announcing very soon the outcome of those negotiations. I think what we see here is the Shadow Minister apparently taking the side of people taking collective action in a premature way that is detrimental to patients, and frankly, they would be better off waiting for the outcome, because we on this side are taking industrial relations into the 21st century as opposed to the performative nonsense that we saw for the last 14 years.
Question number 11, Mr. Speaker.
Minister. Ooh, straight to 11, sorry. Excuse me. Running through. I thank the Honourable Lady for that question. When someone is detained, family involvement is extremely valuable, and families should be supported to maintain contact with their loved ones. Our mental health bill will strengthen requirements to involve families in people's care. We will require clinicians to involve patients and their families where possible when developing new statutory care and treatment plans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two ongoing constituency issues with adult men who have serious and long-term mental health issues. One of my constituents believes her life is in danger because of her son's threatening behaviour towards her, and her own mental health has been seriously affected by the fear and stress. The other case involves a young man causing serious distress to his neighbours with his behaviour, which recently led to an incident where he reportedly threatened a police officer with a knife. Both men are living alone in unsupported accommodation. Both are at risk of coercion and abuse because of their own mental health problems, and both are causing serious distress to their families and neighbours. So could the Minister tell the House whether he is working with other departments to ensure there is more provision available to support people like my constituents to live safely in the community and not cause harm or distress to those around them?
Well, I thank her for that question. I know she has met with my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, about at least one of those constituency cases. NHS England has asked mental health trusts to review the care of high-risk patients and has published national guidance on the standards of care that are expected. Ultimately, the Mental Health Act is there to protect people and provide the necessary powers to enable clinicians to manage and support such patients, and where possible in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I met with Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust and spoke about the need to support families of those suffering with mental health issues in Harlow, particularly those with caring responsibilities. Can I ask the Minister to consider how mental health services can better identify and support young carers?
Minister. Well, I thank him for that question. He'll be aware that we are bringing forward legislation, the Mental Health Bill. A very important part of that legislation will enable family members, when they're chosen as a nominated person, to have powers to request assessment under the Act, challenge decisions and request considerations of discharge in line with the nearest relative powers.
Sir Smith.
Question 13, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend my honourable friend for her dedication to improving support for children in her role as the Opportunity Mission Champion. Children with special education needs and disabilities may access a range of NHS services, including health assessments and specialised support. All integrated care boards must have an executive lead for SEND to ensure that this work receives the sufficient focus. And we're working closely with the Department for Education on reforms to the SEND system.
Sarah Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister is aware, sadly last year we faced the devastating closure of the Akivic Hospital after 14 years of mismanagement by the party opposite. I want to place on record my thanks to the frontline staff who've managed that transition and the operational challenges to relocate services. But sadly, a fully purpose building for children with SEND has had to be used to relocate these clinical services. So how does the Minister plan to ensure that those with SEND are at the heart of commissioning plans and service development?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The system we inherited has been failing to meet the needs of children with SEND for far too long, and that's become clear with what's happened at Akivic. But through the 10-year health plan, we will be considering all those policies, including those impacting children and young people. We're working closely with the Department of Education to support the delivery of the Opportunity Mission, but I also recently hosted a roundtable of children and young people, including those with SEND, so that they can feed directly into the 10-year plan and will be at the heart of our planning and our thinking on these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your heart would have been gladdened last week by seeing colleagues from across the House coming together to support my Down Syndrome Act debate, calling for that Act 3 years on to be implemented. The Minister for Bristol South responded for the government, said that Down syndrome specific guidance would be produced, which was really welcome. So could I ask the Minister to ensure that we now restrict the consultation group to those organisations which represent Down syndrome people only, and promise to the House that after 3 long years that we will finally see this statutory guidance issued before the end of this calendar year?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. Work to develop the Down Syndrome Act statutory guidance is being taken forward as a priority. We have a view to publishing it for consultation by the summer. It is involving people with Down syndrome as well as a wider group.
No topicals, unleashed on. Midgley.
Topical question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
So state.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since I reported to the House on the government's plan to abolish NHS England, hammering the final nail into the coffin of the disastrous 2012 reorganisation of Lord Lansley, the reforms have been welcomed almost universally across Parliament, with the exception of Lord Lansley. I'm pleased to report the new Chief Executive of NHS England, Sir Jim Mackey, has appointed the transformation team that will deliver better care for patients and better value for taxpayers' money. We're working closely together as we finalise the 10-year plan for health, which will be published around the spending review in June.
And Lee Smidsley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, June, is 74 years old and has stage 4 cancer. She had to queue, not phone, queue at 8 a.m. in the morning at her GP, only to not be given an appointment. Can the Minister tell me what he is doing to stop dreadful situations like this?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very sorry to hear of June's experience. And in fact, this illustrates why our determination to end the 8 a.m. scramble for appointments is so necessary, starting with a new requirement for practices to make online appointments requests available through core hours, as well as the big uplift we've invested into general practice. I hope that will start to see improvements that means people like June will not be left queuing outside in the cold.
So, Secretary of State, Ed Egar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I just take this opportunity to thank the Secretary of State for his kindness following the death of my father early this month. It was very much appreciated. Mr. Speaker, I welcome moves to streamline decision-making and improve efficiency in the context of his NHS England announcement, and if he genuinely drives decentralisation to ICBs. However, in a written answer on the 21st of this month, the Minister of State stated, and I quote, "We recognise there may be some short-term upfront costs as we undertake the integration of NHS England and the department." For clarity, can the Secretary of State confirm what he has assessed the quantum of those costs of the reorganisation to be and the date by which they'll have been recouped?
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will want to send our condolences to the right honourable gentleman following the loss of his father, and it is good to see him back in action, if not always back in action. Look, Mr. Speaker, in answer to his question, there will obviously be, given the scale of the job reductions we're seeking to take and the savings we're seeking to make in the order of hundreds of millions of pounds, there will be some upfront costs. The total quantum will be determined once the final shape of the organisation is determined.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I also join with the Secretary of State in welcoming, as I did in January, his commitment to seek to work cross-party on the future of social care? He was right, and I welcomed that at the time. But like him and many others, we're all keen to see progress. Can he just update the House on when he anticipates the cross-party talks postponed in February will be rescheduled to take place?
Yes, I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman's question. Baroness Casey will be making contact with all party groups in order to set dates with parties across this House very shortly, and of course she'll be kicking off her commission in April, which is now only days away.
Alan Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been brilliant to meet residents in recent weeks who've had their operation dates brought forward, thanks to the additional evening and weekend appointments the Labour government has funded. But we know too many people are still waiting too long. What more will ministers be doing to really drive down waiting lists in my community and across the country?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question. As he says, we've brought NHS waiting lists down 5 months in a row, including during the peak winter pressures. We've delivered the 2 million more appointments we promised 7 months early, and we published our elective reform plan at the beginning of the new year with the Prime Minister, which sets out the combination of measures, the investment and reform that will make sure that we deliver the shorter waiting times and the faster access to treatment that his constituents and people right across the country deserve, and I look forward to keeping you updated.
People in unless we pick up the pace. Helen Morgan will be a good example, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In last night's Panorama programme, the Secretary of State was reported to have said that he doesn't need to wait for a review to put more money into social care, which we agree with. So if that's the case, will he explain why the Casey Commission will take 3 years and instead committing to getting it done this year to fix the social care crisis straight away?
Phase 1 of the Casey Commission reports next year. The final Casey report is due by 2028. But the Chancellor already announced an increase in funding for social care in the budget through means which her party seems to oppose, regrettably.
Melissa Strathern.
Mr. Speaker, it's impossible not to be inspired by my constituent Hayley and the bravery of her daughter Lily after she was diagnosed with an optic pathway glioma, aged just 1. Hayley stepped back from work not just to look after Lily, but to make sure she was able to campaign for change too. Now, the government's commitment to a national cancer plan is welcome, but with brain tumours not typically staged or screenable, how can we ensure they're not overlooked as part of the plan's development?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I commend the honourable member's constituents' work with the Brain Tumour Charity, and I wish Lily well in her treatment. The government has launched the Brain Tumour Research Consortium, which will support efforts to speed up the diagnosis of tumours and aid the recovery of patients, and the National Cancer Plan will ensure that we include brain tumour patients. We know everyone's cancer is as unique as they are, and this will be reflected in the plan.
In reviewing the NHS workforce plan, will ministers urgently review the pay and status of registered nurses, who are, after all, the backbone of the NHS? Many are now dependent on food banks. Thousands are saddled with student debt. And most NHS registered nurses will expect never to rise beyond band 5, which is a maximum of £35,000 a year.
Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor took almost immediate action to deliver the uplift in pay for NHS staff that they deserve. We're working closely with the Royal College of Nursing, Unison and others to make sure we continue to tackle the challenges of low pay in the nursing profession, which the member describes.
Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since being elected, I've been contacted by a number of constituents registered with a GP in Scotland who find themselves unable to get medication for which they have a prescription while they're visiting in England. Will my right honourable friend take steps to encourage NHS England and NHS Scotland to work together to find a solution to the problem that works for patients?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about my honourable friend's constituents' experience. Accessing vital medicines while travelling between nations should be seamless, and I will ask NHS England to work with NHS Scotland to better understand what needs to change to make things easier for patients across the UK.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the recently announced 50% staffing reductions across integrated care boards, has the Secretary of State made any assessment of how these cuts to the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough ICB will delay the delivery of essential new primary care services for my rapidly growing constituency, particularly in North Stoke, Camborne and St Neots, where thousands of my constituents are already facing unacceptable difficulties in accessing care?
Mr. Speaker, despite the significant uplift announced by the Chancellor at the budget system, financial returns during the planning round suggested an overspend for the coming year of between £5 to £6 billion. When I said I wouldn't tolerate overspending in the NHS, I meant it. When I said I would go after unnecessary administration costs, duplication and bureaucracy, I meant it. That's what this government is doing to protect frontline services.
Jenny Riddle-Carper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In Saxmundham, in my constituency, Dr Harvard has led a campaign for 20 years to transform the healthcare centre into a one-stop shop community healthcare hub. His practice has already expanded services and in transforming health locally. Does the Minister agree with me that the Saxmundham Healthcare Hub is an excellent example and model for what this government is trying to do to transform community healthcare?
Minister.
Well, I thank her for that question. She's absolutely right that shifting from care from hospital to community is at the heart of our 10-year plan. I'd be happy to meet with the doctors leading this pilot to find out more about the excellent work that she describes.
In Jardine.
Mr Speaker, for 8 years I've seen how a young constituent was able to completely control his previously life-threatening seizures with medicinal cannabis, but at huge cost to his family, cost which makes it prohibitive for other people. So will the Secretary of State meet me to discuss how we can make access to treatments like this more affordable, more accessible and safe to help more people?
I thank you for that question. We recently had a very helpful debate in Westminster Hall on this issue. We are doing more research into this issue to make sure that the evidence base is there. I'm happy to discuss that further with her.
Mohammed Jassim.
In the ongoing discussion on assisted dying, one point on which we all agree in this House is the urgent need to improve palliative care. I therefore welcome the government's recent commitment of 100 million to support hospices, which help my constituency as well. But what can the Minister confirm whether long-term funding for hospices will be a priority to upcoming 10 years health service plan?
Minister.
Well, I thank him, and he's right. The hospice sector has been provided with the largest capital spend in a generation, £100 million. We're also providing £26 million revenue funding to children and young people's hospices, and I can confirm that hospices will play a key role in our shift from hospital to community, as he set out in his question.
Victoria Collins.
Speaker, tragically, Ed was just 24 years old when he decided to take his own life, and that is why the family have joined us today in the gallery. What urgent action are the government taking to improve mental health care and suicide prevention for young people just like Ed?
Minister.
Well, I thank her for that question, and she raises a very important issue. We are investing in 8,500 more mental health specialists as well in every school, and Young Futures hubs across the country to ensure that we do whatever we can to prevent these tragedies happening.
Marcus Campbell-Savers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. An early day motion from 2007 noted that women were typically waiting 8 years to be diagnosed with endometriosis. Shockingly, nearly 20 years later, that wait has increased to 9 years. This government is right to tackle the appalling waiting list for surgery, but the 1 in 10 women who suffer with endometriosis often struggle with years of pain before surgery is even suggested. Would the Minister outline what plans the department has to deal with these delays and how we can ensure that those working in primary care recognise this debilitating condition earlier?
It's a shocking, those statistics are shocking. There have been campaigns led here and elsewhere have helped to raise the awareness. Nice guidelines updated will help. Our more appointments and our commitment to 18 weeks will also help. Training for GPs is now part of the core curriculum. We expect that to yield good results. There is look across NHS England with the ONS on the statistics with regards to diagnosis metric standard, and I'm happy to update him outside of this, and other members I know are very interested in how we make sure we deliver on these commitments.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My constituents in South West Hertfordshire remain concerned about the significant delay to Watford General redevelopment. With the Chancellor already bringing forward a second emergency budget for the House tomorrow, and with care homes, hospices and charities facing unsustainable pressure from this government's national insurance increases, what reassurances can the Minister give my constituents that the Labour Party truly cares about healthcare rather than scoring political points?
Secretary of State.
The irony, Mr Speaker. Look, there's one big difference between what this government is